Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. It's been about a month. We are back. While we were gone, UConn went back to back in the NCAA tournament. It wasn't, I don't know, what were your thoughts, Korea, on the tournament as a whole? It felt like it wasn't, obviously, it's impressive what UConn did, with their run, obviously. I think they covered every game in the tournament the past 2 years. Obviously, we had the NC State run to the Final Four, but it felt like overall it was a pretty chalky tournament, all in all compared to, past years. What were your thoughts on it overall?
Yeah, obviously, first off, obviously, nice to see you again. Obviously, been a while. Obviously, you on the road, me recovering from surgery. Obviously, life gets in the way. Just nice to see you. Nice to see us back here once again, recording and giving out our best bets. But going back to the tournament, you're right. It was definitely a very chalky year. Obviously, UConn's path. You can say it was easy. You can say it was hard. You can say whatever you want about it. But at the same time, UConn. The last time they lost in the NCAA tournament was to New Mexico State, and that was back in the 2022 NCAA tournament. So that we just have to call dominance as it is. And even though we had great runs with DJ Burns and NC State, we had first weekend legendary names like Jack Golke and all the legendary upsets we had with Yale and all that stuff. It definitely was a very chalky year. As you mentioned, not really too many upsets that I could really remember other than the Oakland upset with Jack Golke and then Yale beating Auburn. To bust some people's brackets. As you said, very chalky year. The SEC kind of disappointed this year. That was kind of one conference that I was pretty high on this year, but a lot of disappointments from the SEC this year. Obviously you mentioned the Final Four, a little bit chalky, but kind of the one non-disappointment was one team that I expected to go out early, and that was Alabama. I just didn't know if their offense was going to be able to carry them, but their offense did carry them, and their defense did step up in time. So that was nice to see. Finally someone in the SEC actually doing something. But as you mentioned, a pretty chalky year. It was kind of boring, in my opinion. And I love March Madness, and it was obviously great to see my school Wazoo. Obviously, that was kind of our main storyline for me, just kind of seeing my school finally make it to the big dance after not making it for 16 plus years. So that was obviously a great story to see as well. But you mentioned it was a pretty chalky year. Not really not nothing, kind of nothing like last year where we had like FAU going to the Final Four, and Miami on their run, and UConn was a 4 last year. So kind of a pretty chalky year. Obviously you mentioned UConn and Purdue in the national championship. UConn going back once again, and just a very interesting year, very interesting dynamic compared to last year. But March Madness is kind of how the way it goes. One year you're going to have a crazy amount of upsets, and we'll have like a 9 seed that'll make it all the way to the Final Four, and then the next year we'll have a 1-versus-1 in the title game, and everyone will be calling it the most boring year ever. So it's just how March Madness goes. I know they've been talking about expanding the tournament, and I hope they, for the love of God, don't expand this tournament anymore. But we'll see. Hopefully, what happens next year with all these, with all the conference realignment and whatnot. We're definitely going to be seeing some potential new teams and new places, and a lot of new faces and new places as well with the NIL and all this going on. A lot of people in the portal right now, so we can't really make a prediction for next year. But I mean, UConn obviously one of the bigger stories, just the dominance, and then obviously right now the coaching carousel this offseason. Who would have thought John Calipari would be going to Arkansas? No one really saw that one coming. But when all these openings, when all these coaching job opens up, that just means potential money being thrown with these coaches and with all of this NIL stuff. But definitely a very fun and up and down season, even though it wasn't the way I wanted to end in terms of my bracket and in terms of my best bets as well. Definitely a very fun season for college basketball, as you mentioned. But now obviously kind of heading into what I like to call is the prime season. Obviously getting ready for baseball, getting ready for the prime bit as we get into May, June, July, the dog days of summer. When there's not really much on. We're getting to the end of NBA, obviously. Postseason starts right around the corner. We have the Masters on for some people who do like to bet in golf. Obviously one of the bigger, opens. of the obviously the biggest one of the entire year. So, we're not dead yet, and obviously we have the NFL draft right around the corner. So, we're as we always like to, end with one sport. We always like to look forward into what's happening now and what's happening in the future. So, like you said, very chalky year, but at the same time, that's how March Madness is sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like you said, this is a time of the year where, college basketball ends, then we get into NBA, NHL, both postseasons, and then, the dark days of summer. It's just MLB. Maybe WNBA could be more interesting this year with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese coming out. That could be, somewhere to maybe place some bets on this year. But yeah, we're getting and then like you said, the NFL draft in a little over 2 weeks. So and then before you know it, we'll be into training camp, and again before you know it, we'll be into week one of the NFL season. It goes by pretty fast usually. So there's always something to look forward to, even when one sport ends. Again, like you said. So we'll get into our best bets today. MLB. For you, Korea, 2 plays. It was already a short board. We already have 2 games postponed right now. The Braves Mets is in a delay, and then later I've seen the Phillies game may be canceled, but it's still a while away. So maybe the rain, goes passes by, by the time the game starts. But Korea, we'll start off with your 2 best bets today. What do you like today with the A's and the Red Sox? You're muted.
Oops, sorry, muted. First, we're going to go to one of the few games that's actually happening today. Not that many, obviously, with a very small slate, obviously, as well, with all these rain delays. Get a roof, y'all. But we're going to go to one of the games that actually has a roof, and we're going to go take the A's here. And I know a lot of people say, Korea, why aren't you fading the A's? Well, here's why. We're taking them plus 1.5 here at minus 125. I am looking at this matchup here. And when we look at matchups here, especially for baseball, that's kind of what we like to look for, in terms of, hitting splits, also pitching matchups. And going for the A's on the mound is JP Sears. And, this is a very, all these divisional matchups, we have a little bit more advantage on these small underdogs because they face each other so much and there's a lot of history there. JP Sears, he has pretty good splits against this Rangers team. And, we like to target, these underdogs on the last game of the series because, the Rangers are always already looking ahead to their next series. Same for, the A's. But, in the same time, the A's obviously, not anywhere near the talent as this Texas Rangers team is. Now, I will say the Texas Rangers, obviously, I think they will bring the bats today. I expect, guys like Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia to really kind of put their name in the lineup, as they always have. But, I just taking the A's to cover this run line here. I think, they really get to John Gray today, who has struggled in the past. He is going for the Rangers today, John Gray. He has struggled on the mound versus the A's. The A's have pretty decent splits against him. I think they're hitting about 384 against him on the season. Compared to last season, with pretty decent splits from pretty much every guy in that lineup. So, when I look at that, I just think, I'm just taking, a game that I know is going to be very high scoring. I'm taking this slight underdog going on the road. I'm just going to take him to cover the plus 1.5 here. This is a great bounce back spot as well for the A's, who just lost by 4 runs last night to this Rangers team, and who I actually backed yesterday. The Rangers were in a great bounce back spot, but now, baseball is kind of funny. You back one team one day, and then the next day you think you go with that same team, but you got to go with the other team just because of trends and all that stuff. So, I do like the A's here to cover the plus 1.5 one line. I think that's about minus 125 on DraftKings right now. I would sprinkle the money line, but I just don't trust that A's bullpen against this Texas Rangers lineup that I know can, hit the ball at any time when you have guys like Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia, in the lineup. They're definitely, and Jonah Heim as well, a great threat for JP Sears. I think, the A's just to cover the 1.5 run line is definitely going to be our best bet today. So I like that at minus 125. And then hopefully this game also happens today with all the games postponed today. We're taking the Red Sox. We're just going to take them through the first 5 money line. I know it's about even money right now, but, I am taking the team that is not only at home, but I'm taking the better team at home against the better offense. We talk about the Red Sox and how they're a very streaky team, but, I do not like Grayson Rodriguez's splits on the road in this spot. And, even though both teams, I do expect bounce back spots for Rodriguez, on the round, and Whitlock, obviously, he has had, pretty good numbers, but, the one question for him is, how is he going to do, at home against a pretty good Orioles lineup? There's also that push potential. I was going to take, the Red Sox to cover the run line at, first five plus half a run. But, I'm just sprinkling the fact that I think this Red Sox team could potentially, win this first five outright. And, if they don't, or hopefully if they tie, that's the caveat of first five. If they tie, we get our money back. So, hopefully we're just hoping for a tie, or maybe even the Red Sox potentially winning after the first five. I think Garrett Whitlock has a great day on the mound today. He has not the greatest numbers against the Reds, against the Orioles, but Grayson Rodriguez's splits against this Red Sox team are not great either. I think they get to him early, and that's why I'm taking the first five. I think the Orioles, like kind of how they were yesterday. They kind of slowly got back into that game. Against the Red Sox yesterday, it was kind of some 6+6, 7th, 8th inning magic that we saw yesterday with this Orioles team. We saw that game-winning 3-run from, I think it was in the top of the 8th or something. They were down 5-4, now up 7-5. So I kind of think it's going to be a repeat of that today. It could go the opposite way, but I do like Garrett Whitlock at home in this spot. I don't think I'm seeing in terms of the weather, and I don't think there's that much rain, but, you never know. There's clouds in the forecast, so, anything could happen with this game. So, I do like the Red Sox to the first five, and because it is such a late start, we don't really know what the weather is going to be like at game time for now. Currently, I'm seeing Fenway is going to be a little cloudy today, so, you got to take that with a grain of salt. But those are my two best bets today. I'm just taking the A's plus 1.5. At minus 125. I'm just taking a team that knows how to get to John Gray. I know they're going to get to him early, but I'm just taking them to cover the 1.5 run line. I don't think they're going to win outright. I would like to sprinkle them, but I know this Texas Rangers lineup is definitely going to be getting to JP Sears and the Oakland A's bullpen eventually. And then I'm taking the Red Sox here, kind of a repeat play of yesterday. I'm taking the better team at home. Just through the first half against in these splits, against Grayson Rodriguez, who has been banged up, against this Boston Red Sox offense before. And I'm taking them at home through the first five. I don't really like the Red Sox full game. I know it's about, I think, minus 105. I just like the juice at plus 100. If you don't like the juice at plus 100 or 105, you can definitely take the run Red Sox first five plus half a run. I don't think the Orioles get out to a really big lead. I think it's either going to be tied or maybe even the Red Sox have a lead through the first 5 innings. So those are my 2 plays today: the A's plus 1.5 and the Red Sox first 5 money line, sprinkling also the potentially the full game money line as well. But Ari, what have you cooked up for this Thursday? I know we got a very small slate for baseball, obviously, but obviously we got some NBA as well. What have you cooked up for this Thursday?
Yeah, I have 3 MLB, 1 NBA, a couple nerfies, starting off with the Astros and Royals coming up at 11 Pacific time. Brady Singer against Hunter Brown. The Astros, top of the lineups, 1 for 9 Altuve, Jordan's 2 for 9, and Kyle Tucker's 0 for 2. So obviously it's still limited sample size, but not much success in that limited sample size against Singer. And then Hunter Brown, there's really nothing. Bollywood's 0 for 1. Salvador Perez is 1 for 2. And Michael Garcia and Vinny P hasn't faced him, so there's not, even more limited sample size, obviously. But just backing the 2 pitchers who I trust enough to get to the top of the order. Obviously, the Royals are going for the sweep. They've been really hot. I think they've won 6 games in a row. So, even despite that, I'm still a little bit more worried about the Astros top of the lineup just in general. But obviously, they've had less success against Singer. And so that's kind of what I'm going with there. Nerfy in the Royals game, and then going to the Boston-Baltimore game. Backing both pitchers, both the Nerfy and the first 5 under 4.5. I think that this is accurate. According to ESPN, it's only 11 at bats for the Red Sox against Grayson Rodriguez, 3 for 11 overall. Devers is 1 for 2. Cots is 0 for 2. And then they get to Whitlock. The Orioles are 12 for 52, 231 average. Mountcastle's 3 for 9. Mullins 2 for 8. Santander's 2 for 8. Hayes 2 for 8. I believe that's accurate according to ESPN. So limited sample size and success against both pitchers for both lineups. Obviously, we don't have the exact lineups yet because it's not for several hours, but just we know the general lineup obviously. So just going with backing both pitchers in that game with the Nerfy and the first 5 under 4.5. So those are my 3 baseball plays, and then the NBA. We're back in the beam at home. The Kings over the Pelicans. Both teams have something to play for, which obviously with 2 games left in the year for most teams, or maybe 3 for some teams. Obviously, some teams have a lot to play for. Some teams have nothing to play for. The Pelicans are currently in the 6th spot. They're a half game ahead of the Sun, so they're playing to stay out of the play-in tournament. And then the Kings are in the 8th spot, a half game ahead of the Lakers, so they're playing to be in that 7th and 8th spot where they only have to win 1 game and not 2 games in the play-in tournament. The Kings just blew a 20-point lead against the Thunder on Tuesday, a 20-point halftime lead. They've been a really weird team this year where they've blown a lot of big leads. But they've also had some big wins. I'm just backing the home team here. Still no Brandon Ingram for the Pelicans. He's been out for a while. So I'm just taking the Kings at home, bounce back from a pretty ugly loss where they're up by, I think, 21-22, something like that, half against the Thunder and lost outright. So I'm letting the beam in Sacramento tonight in the NBA with those 3 MLB plays, the 2 Nerfies and the first 5 under in the Red Sox-Baltimore game.
Ari, I was looking at that Nerfy as well for the Astros and Royals, but I decided to go with your other play with the first 5 under 4.5. I do like that play, for the Astros and Royals today. I do think, Brady Singer, as you mentioned, he has pretty decent splits, against this Astros team, and then Hunter Brown as well against the Royals. Even though they've had some shaky starts, from either side, I think they hunker down and as well, and I agree with you for the first 5 under. I would also maybe target the Nerfy, but I just would take away and maybe target the first 5 under 4.5. So I do like that play for you. Also mentioning the Orioles and Red Sox, we're both kind of on similar plays. I was looking at the first 5 under 4.5, but I was more confident in the Red Sox, potentially, keeping this game close as well. So, I do like your thinking there, especially in this kind of nasty kind of weather game. You kind of expect, maybe a Nerfy would be a good play, maybe a little bit of wind or something. Hopefully no, serious postponements, because when we have rain delays and Nerfies, those are the Nerfy killers. A rain delay is a Nerfy killer for anyone. So take any of these Nerfies with a grain of salt. Obviously, if there is a delay, obviously I don't expect any other major delays, but obviously, we've already had 2 games that are postponed. 1 game is obviously currently postponed as we are talking right now. The Mets and Braves, they're in a rain delay. There's also talks of the Phillies and Pirates also being in the delay. So obviously, with all these games currently, potentially not happening or being delayed, take these Nerfies, obviously with the grain of salt. If they do get delayed, obviously, rain delay, as we mentioned, the Nerfy killers, that is what ruins any Nerfy. But I do like those 2 Nerfies for you today. I was looking at, those 2 as well. I do lean the Orioles and Red Sox a little more, as I do lean the first 5 under 4.5. And then you mentioned the Kings, just taking the better team at home. Obviously, as we get near the end of the regular season, both teams do need both of these wins. Both teams need to win this game, obviously. But, I hate saying like the beam because I'm a Warriors fan, but obviously, they definitely need this win. Obviously, kind of in that play-in /6 seed battle in the West right now, and you're just taking the better team. Kings money line -115 at home. So I like those plays for you. Obviously with the Nerfies, and then obviously your first 5 under 4.5 with the Kings money line, and those are my 2 plays. The Red Sox first 5 money line, just a little bit of sprinkle. I think the Red Sox, get out to a first 5 lead just because of the fact that a very low scoring game. I think the Red Sox maybe get to Grayson Rodriguez a little bit earlier, and then great Garrett Whitlock has as you mentioned, are great splits against this Orioles team. So I think I expect the home team have a first lead through the first 5 innings. Then it's a lot easier, obviously, with the Red Sox having the bat in the bottom half of the 5th. We would only need, to get through the top of the 5th. And then if they do have a lead or if they're tied, that obviously would be a push or potentially an over or a win for us as well. And then for the A's, I'm taking them +1.5. I think that they make this game interesting today in a look-ahead series for the look-ahead spot for the Rangers, obviously, as they look for their next series, and same for the A's. I'm just taking the better offense potentially in this spot. Those are my 2 picks today. You can find obviously all these picks on our Twitter below AKP Sports Talk. as we said, we're getting back into our daily mojo of giving out our best bets. Obviously Ari was on his vacation. I'm still recovering from my surgery. We're just two humans, at the end of the day, just trying to live our lives. But now obviously with life calming down for both of us just a little bit, we're going to get back into our daily plays as we love to do for you guys. But that's going to do it for this episode of AKP Sports Talk. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will be back obviously tomorrow with some more best bets and some more videos. And in the future, obviously, like as Ari said, the NBA coming to a close and the NHL coming to a close. He mentioned the WNBA coming up soon. You could see the eventual Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Sabrina Ionescu parlay, people. That is coming. We are talking about that. Yes, we will. It'll be coming soon. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. That's Ari. I'm Karibu. See you guys tomorrow.